Hey everyone. Hey. We're just getting organized here, making sure that I am actually live. I think I am. Hi everyone. Here I am. I'm so excited to be here with you today to talk about the secret formula for change. What on earth are we talking about here? The truth is that change, and we all know change is hard, right? Change is hard. And maybe it can be a little simple too. Let's play with that today. So today I want to teach you the secret formula, what I believe is the secret formula for lasting change. It's actually not just my belief. It is an actual a theory, a formula put forward by a guy named David Gleicher in the 60s. So this isn't just my secret formula. This is an actual formula for change. And I have just recently released a brand new workbook. I'm very excited about it, as I know some of you know, called The Secret Formula for Lasting Change. And you can download it. Let me grab the link right now and put it in the comments so you can find it. It's totally free, available to download. It's like 18 pages. I'm pretty impressed, but really more than anything, it shares the formula and offers 4 hands-on activities for you to dive in and examine the change that you're looking to create in your life, in your work, in the world, and evaluate where are you in relation to this formula. Do you have all the variables figured out? And if you don't, what might that tell you about what comes next? Okay, so that's what we're going to cover today. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I think it's really pretty simple, and I just want to give you a taste of how it works and how to start applying it to your life and your work. Okay, so what is this secret formula? Like I said, it is a theory put forward by David Gleicher in the 1960s. It has been popularized by a number of different researchers since then. I first learned it from my colleagues at Luma Institute, who do a lot of teaching and coaching around change. And so I picked it up a few years ago and have been like mulling on it and noodling over it, and it suddenly just hit me like, wait a minute, why doesn't everybody know how this works? Because it's pretty enlightening. So let me show you what it looks like. I've got this little thing right here. Hopefully you can see that. The formula for change. Okay, boy, can I just say too, I am not a math person. So the formula for change, C equals A times B is greater than X. Okay, algebra, right? I think it's algebra, but what does it actually mean? So this is how I think about it, okay? So over here, change, right? We know change. Change equals your level of dissatisfaction with your current state. How dissatisfied are you with your current state? B, I have it here as a crystal ball. What is the future state that you can imagine? How clear are you on what that is? D is the road to get there, the path. How clear are the steps that you need to take in order to achieve that future state? And then all of that needs to outweigh X, which I think of as the cost of making the change. And maybe those are financial costs, maybe they are time, maybe there are relationships at stake here. So in order to make any lasting change, we have all the components right here. We need to know what change we're trying to make. We need to know how satisfied or dissatisfied we are with something. We need to know what the future state looks like and the path to get there. And in order for change to happen, these 3 variables have to outweigh the cost of making the change. Okay, so just stop for a second. Like, sure, that sounds all good and well, I suppose. I mean, It's pretty simple, but I find actually that it's in explaining how this actually applies, that it can be especially useful. So let me give you a few examples, okay? The first example that I love to go to, thinking about this formula again, is wanting to buy a new car, right? So let's imagine the change that I'm trying to achieve is to get a new car, okay? Now, I might be pretty dissatisfied with the car that I have. I likely know what car I want to buy, right? What that future state is. And I know how to get there. In fact, I mean, now there are more options for buying a car, but really the pathway is to go to a dealership, right? It's pretty simple. And when all of these things come together, the product of these is greater than the cost of making the change. So say I'm really dissatisfied with the car I have, I know what kind of car I want to get next, and I know how to buy it. That's going to be a recipe, a formula for a pretty simple change that is going to outweigh the cost of the actual cost of the car, maybe the pain of like having to change my title and registration, right? Or haggle with the salesman at the dealership, right? All of that is going to be outweighed by my clarity on these variables A, B, and D. Okay, so that's a really simple example. What about in our careers? This is something that I think about a lot in the coaching that I do and the people that I work with. Often when I hear from a new client, and I'm going to keep holding this up so you can keep seeing it. When I hear from a new client that they often will come to me and say, Ashley, I'm ready to make a change in my career, but I don't know what it is, and I don't know what I'm working towards, right? They will likely come to me and they will say, I'm really dissatisfied, like really dissatisfied. I hate my job, or I hate my boss, or I just can't keep doing this anymore. And they often will say, I'm really ready to make the change. Like I don't mind that I have to put in the work. I don't, the cost, the risk of having to walk into my boss's office and say, I'm out of here, I can handle that. The problem that I struggle with, or the challenge that I struggle with, is solving for the crystal ball. What do I want? What am I working towards, right? What are my goals? What's my life purpose? These are all questions that often career switchers, job seekers, people looking for more meaning in our careers, we often struggle with the crystal ball question. And even once we know the crystal ball, then we've got to solve for how do we get there, right? So then we get into this variable, where am I going? D, right? The path to get there, the clarity of the steps. So often when I hear from coaching clients, how does this apply to them? I'm looking for change. They often are very clear on A and X, but they're not clear on B and D, right? And so my advice always would be to go towards the variables you don't yet know the answer for, right? And that's what coaching is. That's certainly what my coaching often is let's imagine what that crystal ball is, and let's figure out the steps to take to move you forward and get there, right? So that's a coaching context, or a, finding fulfillment in my career context. I want to share one more example of this. I have to admit I was sort of surprised by it. So as I was putting together this guide, I had a lot of time to think about how the change formula applies to my life and my work. And there is one specific change that I'm really looking to make this year in my business. And I'm super excited about it. And I just can't get there fast enough. That feeling when you know what you want and you know how to get there, and you just can't get there fast enough. You're so ready, right? And I've been working very diligently on this change. And if I plug it into the change equation, I'm actually pretty clear on my B, right? On my, what is my crystal ball? I know what I'm working towards. And I actually know how to get there. I know the path. it's a hard path and it takes a long time and a lot of effort, but I know how to get there. And so I've been thinking like, I'm good, I'm set, right? And as I worked through this workbook, like putting together this workbook, and you know the expression eating your own dog food? Like as I ate my own dog food and thought about how this formula applies to the change that I'm trying to make, I was actually out for a walk with my dog and like stopped in my tracks when I finally put this together. Do you ever have walks like that? I was just like, oh my God, I get it. And what I realized is I want to make this change, and I know what the change is, and I know what that future state is. I know how to get there. But right now, the variables that I'm struggling with are A and X. So in an interesting way, I want to make this change because it's about a vision that I have for my work and my life, not because I'm dissatisfied. I'm actually very satisfied in many ways in my work. And it's funny because I do believe we can make change even from a place of satisfaction, right? It doesn't have to be about dissatisfaction. But as I started to think about these variables, if A is my level of dissatisfaction with the current state, well, then it's a pretty low number because I'm actually not dissatisfied, right? And then if you think about A, B, and D needing to be the product, that like that combined number, all of that needing to outweigh the costs, I started to think about the costs associated with making the change that I want. And actually, there are some really real costs. You know, time and energy and attention taken away from other things in order to make this change happen. Even some like real financial costs, because it's taking a leap of faith and trying something new that is not yet like a revenue source for me. So there are actual financial costs associated with this change. Not to mention just like not wanting to totally burn out in the process of doing this work and trying to accomplish this change. I mean, that is a real cost of pushing anything new forward, is you got to work really hard, right? So it's been very interesting because for my change, I actually, A and X are not as strong. They don't have as much of a magnetic pull in this formula for me as I thought that they did. And suddenly for me, when I put that piece of the puzzle together, I realized, oh, this is why this is so hard. This is why I feel sometimes like I'm rolling a boulder up a hill. And it's because there is some inner conflict for me around making this change. It's not that I don't believe in the change or that I don't believe in the vision of what I want to create. But in my current state, you know, it's kind of nice here, right? There isn't as much urgency to change. Actually, I kind of like where I am. And there are some real costs associated with making this change. And suddenly it's like, well, maybe it's good right here, right where I am, right? So for me, this formula helps me identify some tension, helps me see that, in fact, all of my variables are not lining up towards an easy, simple, clear change that I'm activated to make. It's more complicated than that, right? So this little formula has so much power, so much potential to help you understand the change that you're trying to make. And I've written the guide to kind of loosely focus on career change because I know so many of us, so many of you are interested and really ready to design a work life for yourself that feels purposeful and meaningful and fulfilling, that allows you to have impact and design your life around it, right? So that work isn't all consuming. I know that this is so important to so many of you, and my hope is that with this change formula, you can start to actually see that it can be broken down into component parts. I think that is such a powerful reminder, such a powerful like tool in our toolkit change can feel so overwhelming, especially when we're really unhappy and we don't know where to start. And my wish, my hope is that with this formula, you can start to examine, well, what are the parts that I need to get clear on? What are the parts that are actually like blocking me right now because I'm not clear on them, right? And where do I go next? Okay, so just really briefly, I want to outline the 4 sections that are in the 4 activities that are in this workbook. I've put the link here in the notes. Please, please, please feel free to download it, use it, give it a try. Let me know how it works for you. Okay, so the 4 activities that you work through in this workbook are really lined up to these 5 variables. And the reason it's 4 activities and 5 variables is that, again, I think that A and X are actually really related. And so I combined them into one activity, one exercise. So the first one is focused on change, and actually naming the change that we want to make. You know, it's funny because like, it's one thing to say like, I'm unhappy in my career or I want something different, but translating that or like moving it forward into, so what is the change that I'm committing to make? It's suddenly, even that little bit more clarity, right, is going to help you move forward. So this first activity, it's called Understanding the Current State. And it's all focused on giving you the space to reflect and take a holistic look at your whole life, even if you're coming to this change through the lens of work, right? Work affects everything. So the first activity is really about understanding your current state from across a number of dimensions and naming the change that you want to make, right? So looking at your level of satisfaction with different areas of your life, and then, you know, examining what's working and what's not in those areas, and then saying, okay, this is the change that I want to make. And it's possible that there might be multiple changes you want to make. So I'd encourage you to pick one and then work through the rest of the activities with that in mind, and rinse and repeat. Come back and do it again, okay? So that's the first activity. The second activity is focused on A and X, because again, I think they're kind of a tandem pair. And it's really about unpacking the problem. Yeah, I called it exactly, Unpacking the Problem, word for word. And that is really about looking at the causes of the problem, the effects of the problem, and the cost of the change you want to make. So I am operating under the assumption that you want to create change because there's some kind of problem. We could reframe that and say, you want to create change because there's some kind of opportunity, right? It doesn't have to be a problem-driven exercise, but that's the language that I've used, the framing that I've used. And I've actually used a tree as a metaphor for understanding the causes, the roots of that tree, and also the effects, the branches and the leaves. What happens? What's caused this problem, and what are the problem's effects? And from there, what are the costs that this problem, this change is asking you to take on, right? And this is a decision point. This, in fact, is the decision point that I've found myself in. You know, do the costs of making this change outweigh the benefits of what we're working towards, right? And if you get to a point where you say, you know what, I really want a new job, but in order to find a new job, that means I have to sacrifice the really great benefits that I get at this company. And sacrificing those benefits means, you know, I lose my health insurance or whatever it might be. It's fair, it's honest to say, actually right now, the costs of making this change outweigh, right, what I'm picturing is my future state, right? They outweigh even my sense of dissatisfaction with my current state, right? So there's a moment in the workbook where I ask you, it's almost choose your own adventure, right? Like, are you still committed to wanting to make change, or are you acknowledging intentionally that now is not the time because the costs are too great? Okay, so that's the second activity. Assuming you choose the adventure to keep going, the next activity is focused on getting crystal clear. It's all about solving for that future state, your B variable. And for that, we're doing some brainstorming. Funny enough, when we brainstorm for ourselves, we often already have some ideas, right? Like if there's a change you want to make, you likely already know a couple of things you could try. And so this activity is really like a landing pad for you to say, what are the ideas that I already think I might try? And let's inspect them. Let's poke holes in them. Let's think about what questions I have related to them. If you don't already have questions, that's fine too. That's fine too. This is a place to create some space for yourself to think about those things. Maybe even to invite a friend in to help you consider, what are some ideas that would solve this problem or help me move forward to make the change that I'm hoping to make? Can you help me figure this out? So do it in pairs if you want. So that's the third activity. And at the end of that activity, what I ask you to do is to select one idea that you've brainstormed to say, I think this is one I'm going to try. Right? Now, is that commitment like written in stone? No, of course not. But remember, we've solved for all the variables now except for D, right? We need to talk about the pathway to get there, the action steps, right? And so this last activity is all about outlining a path forward. And the thing about, figuring out how to bridge the gap between where I am now and where I want to go in the long term is that it can be really hard to figure out all the steps between now and like the end of the year, for instance, or between now and my next big birthday or whatever it might be, right? So in this activity, what I ask you to do is to think about what is today's date, and then what is the date exactly 3 months from now? And if I imagine 3 months from now, I have made progress on my goal, made progress on the change I'm looking to achieve. What will I have done? What will I have created, right? What does success look like for this change effort in 3 months' time, right? And thinking about, okay, well, once you have what those success goals look like, well, then what are some steps I need to take in order to get there, right? Like a great example is, I'm looking for a new job, and I'm committed to, I've got an idea around how to do that, and it's to engage my network more fully, right? To ask for help. And so then in 3 months' time, what I'll know that my change effort has been successful because I will have had 10 informational interviews. Right? Okay, so if I say in 3 months' time, I want to have had 10 informational interviews, what are some actions that I need to take in order to achieve that? I need to go through my LinkedIn contacts, or I need to ask friends for recommendations and introductions, right? So there's an opportunity to think about what are some action items, also what questions might come up or what obstacles might even block you, right? Like, I don't know, do I have time for 10 informational interviews over the next 3 months? Maybe I want to shoot for 8. Who knows, right? And then at the very end, there's an invitation, and I have to say I love doing this for myself too. There's an invitation for you to actually pull out your calendar or grab your phone and set a reminder for yourself 3 months from now to come back to this workbook and look at what commitments did you make and how did it go? I do this with myself regularly. I actually send myself an email. So I title it, What Success Looks Like in 3 Months. And then I can like boomerang it, if you know what that is. You send it a reminder for it to send back into your inbox 3 months later. And there you have, it's like a time capsule to yourself. So that's the workbook. That's the 4 activities. And my hope for you for using this workbook is twofold. First, my hope, I want to say obviously, but maybe not obviously. My hope is that the activities really help you move forward. That's my hope, that that you take the time and give yourself the space to really work through each one thoughtfully. It doesn't have to take a long time, but I think committing yourself to saying, this is where I am now, and over the next 20 or 30 minutes, let's see where I can get to. Let's see what clarity I can create for myself and what I'm trying to achieve, the change I'm trying to achieve. So my first hope is that these activities are useful for you. I use them all myself. I find them useful. I would love to hear what you think. I would love for you to send me a direct message or an email. Let me know. What did you learn through doing these activities, doing these 4 simple activities related to the formula? So that's my first hope. My second hope, and I think it gets back to the scenarios that I shared with you at the beginning, is that you can use this formula to almost take stock, like take a temperature of like how strong and how clear are each of these variables for you in your change equation, right? So if we were to take this and plug it in for you, and you said C is whatever, right? And how clear are you on these other variables? Which ones are you certain of, and which ones are still fuzzy or foggy, right? And there's no judgment here, but I think my hope is that by doing that, you can recognize where you are in your own change effort, where you are in your own change progress in the process of making change, and that can be like a stabilizer for you. So often when we're making change, we feel like a reed being blown in the wind. And my hope is that this can be a stabilizer for you. It can help you say, well, I know what my A is and I know what my B is, but I haven't figured out D, which is the path to get there. And so that's what I need help with. Or, I keep saying I want this change, but I'm not making any progress on it. And I actually think it's because the costs of making the change feel just insurmountable right now. And that's where I need to get started. That's what I need to ask for help with or guidance or consider, right? There's so much power in, taking this huge thing, this huge change that we're trying to achieve, and actually breaking it into these components and then being able to evaluate, where am I getting stuck? And what do I know? Celebrating what I know as well can be just as motivating as getting clarity on the things that are keeping me stuck. So that's my hope. I would really love to hear what you think. So please give it a try and let me know how it goes. I also want to say, if this is like really capturing your attention and focus, and you want to dig even more deeply into it, this Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern, I'm going to be going live in my Facebook community. It's called the Wayfinders Collective Community. You can find it just by searching that group name, Wayfinders Collective Community. I'm going to be going live and coaching someone in the moment through this change formula. That's my wish. That's my hope, to spend Friday afternoon, 30 minutes or so, coaching someone one-on-one to help them plug their change effort into this formula and examine where they are in relation to each of these variables. So if you would like custom one-on-one coaching for free would like to join my Facebook community, all you need to do is join the community. I'll see your requests come through, and then comment below or send me a direct message. Let me know you're interested in that coaching spot, and I will be very happy to talk more with you about it and set that up. So please join the community, join the conversation. We have a great group over there, and I'm very excited to hear about your change effort and how this secret formula for lasting change can help you supercharge the change you're trying to create. So thank you, everyone. Happy Wednesday, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.